Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Not long ago I made a video about the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard recording that's part of a lawsuit that they have going on, and I've been sent a number of messages saying there's a second recording. So I listened to that second recording, and my plan was to listen to it and see if it added something interesting or novel to the discussion, if it had more information about personality and relationships. And as it turns out, it does. So I listened to it, and there's actually quite a bit there to analyze. So this second recording was made in 2016. It was a recording of a phone call, and this recording actually took place during their divorce proceedings. So at this point, I would have to assume that both parties would assume that they were being recorded no matter what they did, right? I mean, there's so many recordings, apparently, of the two of them talking. I would just naturally say, if they're talking, they have to reason that somebody is recording it. Now, as I was listening to the second recording, I tried to keep in mind what happened in the first recording to kind of build off of that analysis, and I looked at some other information that's been made public about the case. Now, of course, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard are real people, so just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody here, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. I mentioned in the first video that I'm going to refer to Johnny Depp as Depp and Amber Heard as Amber. A number of people said, why not just Johnny and Amber? Well, the extra syllable. I don't know, it seems like a small thing, but it matters to me. It just makes it a little bit quicker to say Depp as opposed to Johnny. Also, I think I have a preference for using last names when possible. So using Depp is actually normal for me. Using the last name would be normal. It's using Amber's first name that would be unusual. But again, her last name is a verb, and it makes things confusing. So either way, Depp and Amber again. So as we listen to this conversation, we see it starts out with Amber noting to Depp that he's trying to defend himself, right? You're trying to defend yourself is what she says. This seems to be a theme of their relationship. Depp trying to defend himself and Amber not liking that. I think this is important given how this recording kind of progresses, how this conversation progresses. Then we hear Depp saying, look, this has to go away. I want this to go away. He seems exhausted by the whole experience and specifically irritated because he's having that discussion, the one that's being recorded. Amber talks about the legal situation. She seems pretty obsessed with a lot of the details of what lawyer said what to whom and all this. And of course, I don't know the whole backstory. I don't know the lawyers' names or what they were really doing. I know they're involved in the divorce, but either way, we see a lot of kind of pointing to people and saying, why are they doing that? So specifically, she's looking at Depp's attorneys and saying, did you instruct them to do this? Did you tell them to do that? This is actually something I see once in a while. Parties in a divorce get attorneys, but then they want to talk to each other because they feel like the attorneys are not representing things accurately on both sides of the argument. So in looking at the other attorneys, they would say, well, they're not acting with the other person's personality. That person would never do that to me. Like the attorneys are being more aggressive than the other party would be. I think sometimes people forget why they had to get attorneys in the first place. Also, attorneys will never understand your story like you do. They're never going to represent things perfectly. They generally have to presume that the other party is going to be aggressive, and they have to put forward their most aggressive case. It's the nature of their work, especially divorce attorneys. It's interesting that after being in a relationship with so much animosity, violence, and arguments, that Amber was stunned that they can't seem to reach a peaceful resolution using lawyers. Next, we see Depp asking Amber if she really wants to go to court. He mentions that he loves her more than anything in life, and then he says whether your love was real or not, right? And I've seen this pattern many times too. I find this interesting. Clearly, there were moments between this couple that did not involve aggression. We see kind of a love-hate dynamic. I think that saying that you love someone, but then saying whether your love is real or not, is not a de-escalation strategy, right? This is something that I think contributed to making the conversation aggressive, right? More animosity developed because of that, right? So I don't know if that was on purpose, but that's what that type of statement will do. Then we see Amber talking about the secret fight club, and I think she made a reference to like makeup, like essentially suggesting that Depp was suggesting that she used makeup to make it seem like she had bruises. And she said she had a high level of corroboration that that's not what happened. She didn't use makeup and there was no secret fight club, right? So a reference to the movie Fight Club. Interestingly, I think Amber actually seems convincing in this part of the recording. We don't see Depp offering much of a defense regarding those specific statements. That doesn't mean he's guilty. We just don't see a vigorous defense at this moment. Then again, he was trying to resolve this without going to court, right? He mentioned that. So maybe he just thought it was better to let this particular statement slide. Next, we see Amber referencing contemporaneous documents, texts, and photos. She doesn't use the word contemporaneous, but that's what she really means here. She's talking about items, artifacts that were collected at the time an event happened. So there was some sort of physical altercation, and she sends a text. Situations like that. These situations are more believable in a court of law. Now again, she's trying to prove the strength of her case here, a real theme throughout the recording. I've seen that some people have suggested that this action on her part, mentioning the contemporaneous artifacts, proves that her case was not strong. But actually, this is pretty common in disputes. People note the strength of the evidence that they have on their side in order to push a settlement. This occurs in a variety of disputes, including these types of relational disputes. Now, she threatens criminal charges and really mentions that she has a solid case of domestic violence against Johnny Depp. Now, here Amber appears to be a little bit more desperate. Criminal charges typically don't result in a large amount of money going to the victim. Sometimes no amount of money goes to the victim. They're criminal, not civil. This seemed to be more about scaring Depp into a settlement. Many people believe that criminal and civil aren't mixed together in these types of discussions, but they often are. Next, we see Depp saying, do what you have to do, right? So he's not backing down. He doesn't seem to be particularly intimidating. And then Amber mentions she wants to get her reputation back. She wants to be vindicated. Right after this, Depp blames the media for how things kind of spun out of control. Now, I think it makes sense to blame the media when the media does something wrong. Another thing that makes sense is not continuing a relationship that's so destructive and harmful, right? So there were many opportunities for both of these individuals to end the relationship sooner. They stayed in it, I think, for a long amount of time, given what they're presenting here in this recording, right? They're not getting along very well at all. And yet they're going to blame the media essentially for their poor relational styles, skills, or just the specific poor relationship they had. We also see Depp refers to Amber's allegations as the abuse thing. You're bringing up the abuse thing again. This takes more of a dismissive tone, like, oh, you're bringing up that thing again, like it's not important. This also didn't seem to help his position. So we see some inconsistencies. Sometimes he's kind of antagonizing her. Other times he seems to be playing it cool. And then he moves back into being more aggravating. After Amber talks about her credibility being affected again, we see that Depp says, why did you put that out there? So suggesting she didn't have to release any information to the media. This brings up an interesting point. Whether it was a good idea or not a good idea to release it to the media, or regardless of who's guilty or not guilty, once information is released to the media, there is no undo button, right? So that's permanent. It's out there, and they're going to do with it what they will. Next, we see Amber saying that she's trying to protect Johnny Depp, right? And this, again, is something we see a lot in these contentious relationships. So when I heard this, I was thinking, sure, that's what's really going on here. They're both trying to help each other. That's what I was missing in this recording, right? This is a common tactic when trying to settle. I want something, but I'm really doing this to protect you. So my main job is to protect you, but if I make some money through this, that's all right as well. It's kind of a weak position, kind of a transparent position, but again, fairly common. We see that Amber indicates that she feared for her life. She tries to underscore the seriousness of her situation, and Depp comes back and talks about how he lost part of his finger, right? There was a bottle or something that was thrown and exploded, and it cut off part of his finger. He doesn't go into all those details, but that's what I understand from other sources in terms of what happened. So really, Depp is indicating that he was a victim as well. It's not a clear-cut, one-sided situation. And this is where Amber comes up with the fair fight line. She questions whether it was a fair fight between them. I find this interesting. The fact that she uses this as a defense, essentially saying that Depp can't claim it was a fair fight because no one would believe that it was a fair fight. Now, I've heard this many times. If it is a fair fight, does that make it okay? Both of them seem to be missing a larger picture here, right? So If they were well matched for physical combat, somehow nobody'd be worried about this. It wouldn't be a crime. It wouldn't be part of the difficulty with their divorce. I think there's really an overemphasis here on fair physical combat. Any violence is unacceptable in a relationship. Amber doubles down on this position by telling Depp he's bigger and stronger, and she was trying to stop the madness before someone got hurt. So again, she's saying she's more believable as a victim because Depp is a more capable combatant. He's more effective at physical aggression. He's stronger, physically larger. So she's really sticking with this argument. Interestingly, though, at the same time, she says she didn't cooperate with the police when they were called, and again, mentions how the media is corrupt. So moving from the no one will believe you position to the I didn't cooperate with the police position, I'm not really the bad guy, this really typifies the frustrating nature of this conversation. It's back to, you are bad and I'm trying to protect you. Amber again expresses how she wants to clear her name, and Depp responds by saying you can't clear your name. So she moves back to the reputational harm piece, and it seems here Depp is trying to be more of a realist. There are some things that the divorce settlement can't get for them no matter what, right? The reputational harm piece, he's suggesting that's really one of those things. That's gone. Again, once you tell the media, that ship has sailed. So this part of the discussion kind of ends with they both have witnesses that will support that the other one was harmful to them, right? That's kind of summing up that section. Then we see Depp saying, do you believe I'm an abuser? And do you believe you abused me? Amber didn't really answer either of these questions directly. And then we see Amber come back again saying she's 115 pounds, noting the size difference between them. So then we see Depp kind of withdraws from the conversation. I'll see you in court. I tried. You don't exist. I made you up in my head. You have been nothing but cruel to me. We see a lot of confidence on the part of Depp with this ending. And I was left wondering why he didn't say that 25 minutes ago, right? So he waited a lot longer than I think was necessary to essentially achieve nothing, right? When you're trying to achieve nothing, you can always stop early. That's the way I look at these situations, right? If you're not going to get anything anyway, then why waste the time? So there are a few key takeaways from this recording, a few lessons that can be learned in terms of the world of relationships and personality. This was a no-win scenario. This was just painful to listen to. These two were getting nowhere. If this is how their discussions went when they were married, I can understand how they got to this position. Overall, this recording makes Amber's position a little more sympathetic than that first recording. This makes it look like a case of two people that were hurting each other, not as one-sided as the first recording. Even still, Depp was able to frame this a bit to make it seem like he was responding to aggression with a lower level of aggression. So he was in a defensive position, making it sound like Amber's injuries were sustained solely from him defending himself. This, again, was about a 30-minute phone call, and Amber maintained a high level of energy throughout the call. She was excited, angry, rambling on at times, quite a few times. This is not a calm, rational discussion from her side. Depp did a much better job keeping his cool and trying to refocus Amber. He got upset a few times, but not to the extent that Amber did. She appears to be more impulsive and reactive here, and, of course, more desperate. Again, if this is what the relationship was like the whole time, even if you were to put aside all the physical aggression, this interactional style seems horrible. It's really amazing what people put up with. Another takeaway here, as high-profile arguments continue on, who is innocent and who is guilty really becomes lost. Both sides end up getting damaged, regardless of what they did or did not do. And Depp seems to acknowledge that this is the nature of what they're doing. It is their situation. Whereas Amber seems to blame Depp for the mutual accrual of damage. Now moving to the last takeaway, this is just another reminder that money, power, and fame can only get one so far. It doesn't automatically improve somebody's relational style or compensate for personality traits that might not be desirable. It doesn't change the pattern. People don't tend to change. Money and fame can certainly make life more comfortable, but in another sense, it simply allows somebody to amplify the expression of their personality across a wider audience. So again, we see the same patterns, but with higher stakes. Many people look at the lives of celebrities and think they have it made. Everything must just fall into place. They have all this material wealth. They have all this admiration, but problems find a way into people's lives. Destructive relationship patterns are highly resistant to modification. So we see a tough situation with this recording and the other recording between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but there are some lessons that people can take away from these types of interactions. I know whenever I talk about topics like this, there will be a variety of opinions. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.